everybody.
Hello, welcome to
Woo!
the Unaltered E
Welcome.
Experience.
Yes, welcome to the Unaltered E Experience. We are so excited to have Roxane Bybee with us today. She's going to share some of her essential oil experiences with us, and we're going to chat about it. And we're just excited to hear. And actually,
Hold on, and if you don't know, Roxane has been involved with oils for at least a few weeks now, so she's really,
Yes,
she's
it's
really,
been a couple weeks.
yeah, a couple weeks. And before we even start, we're not making any claims at all. We're not saying anything's going to work for you at all. We're not saying it's going to work for anybody. What we are bringing to you is Roxane's story and how oils have her experiences with oils,
mhm.
and that's the main thing. If it works for her, it might work for me. It might not, but that's not what we're claiming. So that's
Yes,
for starters.
yes, that's right. We're sharing her stories. So, Roxanne, will you kind of give us a little background about you first? Like, were you raised using natural healing? Give us a little backstory.
Terrific. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm so happy to be here with you guys. And hopefully, whatever I do share can, give someone an idea of something, like you said, not making a claim, but maybe just some little light that of hope that they can have that something can work for them.
Exactly.
So my background is that my mom, actually, I'm one of 8 kids, and my mom was actually very natural remedy minded,
Mm-hmm.
mainly probably out of, I think she had a draw there, but my dad was self-employed, so there wasn't like, oh, we have these awesome benefits, we're going to go to the doctor all the time. And so the one of the things that probably made me kind of more open, but when essential oils came into my life, I was using herbs as a remedy at that point, so like dried herbs, or anything that but essential oils seemed really weird, which is funny to say that because I'm like, they're not really that different. So I was already the weird herb person that didn't use traditional, go to the doctor all the time and get an antibiotic for this and get an antibiotic for that. But the every time I read about essential oils or saw them in anything, I was like, I have no idea what that is, and they sound really weird. So I was actually a total novice and actually thought, who needs those? People only need those if they're like getting a massage every week, or I just didn't understand what essential oils were and what the power that they hold.
Mm-hmm. I was actually like that too. I'm like, what do you mean an essential oil? Like someone like very briefly was like, oh, hey, because I was using natural, I preferred the natural way. They're like, oh, you might be interested in this. And I remember just looking at it and being like, what are you talking about? Like to make my house smell good? Like, what do you mean? Like, I just didn't understand it all. So yes, without the education, you can't really know.
And for sure,
Absolutely.
the way she was introduced to it, you know, at like a party, I was just like, dude, this can't work. It's total
That
snake
actually
oil.
wasn't when I was first introduced. It was like really brief passing through. That's probably part of the issue there. It was like a friend was like, "Oh, hey, thought you might be interested," and they just handed it to me and walked away, and then like never said anything else. And so it was like a brochure. I just kind of looked at it and I'm like, "Oh, okay, like cool." And then I never even flipped through it. I just like literally looked at the cover and was like, "Oh, that was nice." But like, if it would have been like, "Hey, your kid's sick. There might be something in here that could help you," I would have opened it. But it was just so casual that it was just like, I don't know. Nothing inspired me to open it until like 2 years later, a different person ended up sharing oils with me. But anyways, keep
Wow.
going. Yeah.
Hold on. So you're the what child are you?
I'm the 8th of 8.
You're
Oh,
the baby?
Wow.
that's me too. I'm the baby.
That is awesome.
Wow, nice.
So, and what area of the country did you grow up in?
The West. So my family, I was raised in Arizona
Oh,
until I was about
Arizona.
12.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so now continue. So then when did you like start using oils? Like what caused you to
Yeah.
actually be
So
like,
my sister is actually the one, and her name's Natalie Goddard. And she and I, like I said, we tried to eat as healthy as we could. We've done some cleansing, different, little crazy things together. And so she's like, you know what? You should use essential oils. And I'm like, what? Why? And she sent me a bottle of a blend called On Guard, and it's a protective blend that you use to help the immune system function better. And honestly, I was in a really emotionally kind of locked down place in my life because in 2007 and through 2009, when all the financial crash happened, we were in the middle of building a house in Hawaii that wasn't like some elaborate structure or anything, but we lived over there, and we were like, okay, if we want to live here forever, we're going to need to build a house and live in a part of it, and we'll rent out the rest of it because that's the only way we can afford to live here. And
so wait, what part of Hawaii were you in?
That was in North Shore area, so Laie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and but that process is never short. So between building and that whole process took 2 years, and so our whole life took a totally different course during that 2-year period. And once the house was finished, we were like, we are moving off island, and so we literally right at that time we were like, we'll just sell the house. Well, then the market just crashed. It was like like overnight, We're like, oh my gosh, we put everything into that. We had taken other properties, sold them, and wrapped everything into that house, and thought we would just cash out, because the market was doing so well. And sure enough, we found ourselves in like over $1 million of debt and barely making minimum payments on everything, and just in this not good place. And I hadn't had to work a job while having my little kids at that time until then. And so we ended up moving to California during that time, and I had to take a job while my husband was working. And so I just mentally, I was like, I can't dream of anything better. I can't even, I'm in survival mode. I'm working the weekends. My husband comes home from work on Friday, and I leave, and I'm working all night, taking care of the elderly, and on the weekend. And then, I come back Sunday night, and he goes to work. And it was just, I just remember feeling just totally no hope, that financially things would ever get any better. And so this idea of like using essential oil, I just like my brain was on max overload. And so I just literally didn't even use it. I just stuck it in the cabinet, and I was like, I don't know what this is. I can't even think about it right now.
Totally. And this was, 2010?
It's funny that it ended up being something we ended up using, but that was literally only because of my husband. He found the bottle one day, had no idea what it was, put a bunch of drops in his mouth. And if you know what that blend is, it's hot. It's kind of a spicy blend because it's got cinnamon in it. And so he was really like, what is this stuff? Like, whoa. But he felt something dramatic like from it that was good. He was like, even though it's hot, this is doing something, and
so he just threw it in. He just dropped it in his mouth.
Yeah, he saw that it said supplement on the back. Oh. Okay, so he did do that. He did turn it around. He saw that it said supplement, and it said that you could take it internally. So he's like, okay. And he just went, boom, boom, like we don't know exactly how many drops he got in there, but it was a lot. It wasn't like one. And
that's hilarious.
Knocked him, and that's probably what it would have taken, to get his attention, right?
Totally.
But so he just started researching, feverishly, what is this? What are essential oils, and what is this doing, and what's this company? And so at that point, it opened up a discussion between he and my sister, and he really is the reason, essential oils are even in our home, because I just couldn't give it any room right then. So he just was very patient. He would say to me like, oh, Roxane, maybe try essential oils for this, or Roxane, try essential oils for that. And
that's awesome.
And so that's what leads me into my success stories, because really that's what, the oils work. So I had some really big successes with them, and I couldn't deny it at that point. So I can launch into that, but if you guys wanted to know anything else before that, I'm happy to answer.
Let me tell you really quick what you missed. So they were building a house in Hawaii.
I kind of caught the tail end. They put everything into that, and then
weren't able to sell it.
Yeah. I
My
came in at that point.
I can imagine what that would have felt like. Super heavy. Just like a weight. You probably were like, I can't even get out of this. Like, how is there even a possible like light at the end of this tunnel?
Exit strategy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. You're right. It just felt. I mean, anyone who's had financial troubles knows, But I think sometimes when people hear that, they think, oh, they were like 20,000 in debt or something, But I mean, it was so big. The number was so big that I mentally was like, seeing myself like, oh my gosh, like if we can't get this paid off because we didn't have a good job, it was just a basic job,
Yeah, totally.
There wasn't extra to be putting towards our debt. So I'm like, well, what is it that happens? Well, then you basically pass your debt down to your kids to pay off if you can't pay it off in your lifetime, right?
Oh,
And I mean, if your income's not going to grow, then how are you going to ever, right? So really that thought was like, oh my gosh, like instead of helping my kids with college, once they have income, I'm going to be like, and if I die, I'm going to say, here, you guys got to take care of this. And it sounds so gross. Ugh.
Yeah.
Totally.
So financially, you guys were jacked. And the first oil you were exposed to was On Guard, you said, yeah?
Well, my husband was, honestly, I don't even remember smelling it or anything, you guys.
So what do you want? Do you want to ask more questions, or can you just go into that?
She can go directly into.
Okay, so go into that. So now your husband next.
There was one thing that was really a big issue in my life at that point, and probably a lot of the tension that was going on mentally was creating some of this. But I'm highly strung, if you haven't noticed already, but I'm highly strung anyway. And so with all this stress, I was getting these consistent, in the compliant world, we call it head tension, which otherwise known as a headache.
Yeah.
But,
head tension.
So, basically I just had this throbbing pain multiple times a week. I wasn't someone who was like, oh, I got to go to the ER and get a shot for my migraine. I don't know. I never got them diagnosed. I have no idea. What level of what I was experiencing was, but it was bad enough that I had them consistently, and I didn't want to take ibuprofen or something all the time because I have done studies. I know what happens to your organs when you do that all the time, and so I just didn't want to compromise that. So instead, I just lived in pain, and I was just mean because when you have little kids and you're in pain, you're kind of mean.
So, Would you say that it was every day? It was an everyday thing?
So it wasn't every day. I would say there were days during the week that I was okay. But I would say, 60% of the week, I wasn't.
And
70. So enough of the week that it was hard,
Totally. Well, and hard on everyone else too, right? Because here you are in this pain, and then everyone's like, oh, walking on eggshells probably. Oh, mom's got a headache. Everybody, let's be good today.
Yes. Well, and my kids were really young. Like I had a 2-year-old, 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. So
they didn't even know.
You need all your cards to be able to even be nice to the age range anyway, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate those headaches?
So for me, since I'd never had, I know there's people who just they can't stand light, they can't stand sound, they have to go in a dark room and hibernate for hours on end. Thank God mine weren't that to that stage, but for me they were like a 7 or an 8,
Got it.
And so I could walk around, I could function, but I was not in a happy place. It was hard.
Yeah.
And I tried so many things, like as far as, I need more rest. Oh, I need to drink more water. Oh, I got to make sure I don't eat this. Oh, la, la, la. Nothing was doing it. I couldn't figure out what the source was, why they were happening. And so my husband goes, maybe you should try some of this essential oil. Like it's called Deep Blue and it says it's a soothing blend. And I'm like, okay, whatever. At first, actually, I wasn't thinking, okay. The first thought I thought was, stop talking to me about these stinking oils. Awesome. Classic wife, stop nagging me, right?
Yeah.
But I was kind of desperate. So I put some of the Deep Blue on the back of my neck, right here. And this was just the Deep Blue oil because now doTERRA, the company that I get Deep Blue from, has many different versions. They have a rub. It's been such a popular product. But at the time it was just the oil, and I would just rub it on the back of my neck. And it wasn't like it took that tension and that discomfort away, but it did it took my number down. So the 7 or 8 came down to a 3, and so I could function. It was still there as a dull kind of sensation, but I could live, and so I was like, well, okay, this is helping. And so I would apply it. I would just, every time that it went back up to a 7, I would just apply it again, and then it would come back down, and I just keep doing that. Right. And I remember I even got a little rash on the back of my neck. And I remember thinking, because I knew nothing about essential oils. And I was like, well, if I'm allergic to this, which the reality is you cannot be allergic to if they're really, truly a pure blend of essential oils, they have no allergens in them because allergens will not fit in the distillation process. So I couldn't have been allergic to them. But what was happening, and I figured this out later, is that, skin, when you apply something to it over and over and over, it can just get a little bit irritated or sensitive from that consistent process that you haven't done before, right?
Yeah.
And so I got like some bumps on the back of my neck, and I remember thinking, I don't really care because it's helping. And they went away, like, they went away. And so it was great. My skin finally just adjusted to it. But I had this visualization of like, I'm going to buy a truckload, like a semi full of Deep Blue, because I'm going to have these happen the rest of my life, and I'm going to need this stuff because this is all that's working,
Mm-hmm.
But I kept applying just that same process of like, by pain, if you will, or discomfort was how I was applying it. I wasn't like being preventative, like, oh, I need to put it on. It was just, it hurts.
Got it.
Put it on.
Yeah.
Put it on. And by being that regular, after like a month and a half of doing that, I didn't have them anymore. And it kind of snuck up on me, because it felt a little bit gradual.
Mm-hmm.
And like all of a sudden one day I was like, oh, I haven't had one of those. Wow, that's weird. And I was like, that can't be, that can't be gone from my life. That can't be, no. Well, it was like literally I didn't have to buy the semi-load, and my body, it basically triggered my body to do what it needed to do. So I didn't understand at the time, but I studied some of the oils that are in that blend now. One of them is Heel Prism.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great oil for reducing inflammation, which is, of course, one of the not good words that, once again, I'm not making a claim. I'm just saying
right.
It's possible that I had some inflammation in my neck that was maybe possibly pinching a nerve. This is all just me guessing, right?
Totally.
And that no matter what I had tried wasn't working, right? So maybe once that started to relieve itself, those nerves weren't being pinched anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no idea if it would work for anyone else, but it really was such a huge blessing for me. And so now if I get one of these, it's super random and just kind of irregular. They're not a regular part of my life. It's so awesome.
That's so awesome. I mean, I get headaches every once in a while too. And I've used past tense. Mm-hmm. I've used peppermint. And then when they're pretty gnarly, Deep Blue is helpful. But across the board, Deep Blue is such an amazing oil or blend. And many people say they've addressed their headaches or their head tension, their upper region tension.
Throbbing
pressure.
with
Deep Blue, and that's pretty awesome. And what year was this roughly? So
that would have been 2000. Wait, let's see. Where are we at now? We're at almost 2020, huh? My husband's so much better with the time. I'm always like, honey, when did we do that? And he's like, so I think that was 2010 or 2009. That might have been 2009. I think 2009. Because we've been utilizing essential oils now for 10 years. And so 2019 is where we're at now, and I can add sometimes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so after you realized, that kind of work, these things aren't coming back. Where did that lead you?
Yeah. So first of all, mentally, I was like, because my husband, once again, for some of you, you may be aware that essential oils can be just something that you're utilizing, but you can also use them as a vehicle for income. Mm-hmm. And we needed both, as I mentioned. We needed a health solution because I've already used herbs, but they're a little inconvenient and they're not always super consistent. Mm-hmm. And then we also needed the financial solution big time. And so my husband was already going down that path of creating a business, helping people learn how to use essential oils. And I was very much like, you can do that and I will support you, which really meant I'm not going to do anything.
But the truth is, at that time, that was too much, right? Like in real life, you're like, I'm working, I have these children that I'm taking care of, and I'm sure you did most of the cleaning. And you know what I'm saying? So there's all of these things that you're like, and I'm tapped out, and I'll support you. So that's, I totally understand where that came from.
That is exactly where it was. I just couldn't even, add one more thing to the plate, right? So I get it. The people that are in that space, they're like, I might want to use these, but I can't add one more thing to my plate,
Yep.
So it was kind of interesting that my life brought me something that made me look at it, right? The headaches made me look at it and made me try it. And,
so real quick.
Yeah.
So the headache is a physical thing. You feel the pain. When you use the oil to help alleviate the headache and then all of a sudden they're not really coming back, How did mentally, how did you perceive that, or what did you feel about that?
So my first thought was, oh crap, because I had given my husband so much, hard time, right? And I kind of didn't want to be wrong, right? Like these things were not total hokey pokey weirdness, hocus pocus, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to totally put my tail between my legs and say like I was wrong, and this worked. So that was my first thought was, dang it. And but my second thought was like, wow, these are amazing. I really was like starting to mentally go, okay, everyone's not just making this up,
Mm-hmm.
These are working. So my mental game was definitely more aware, but I was still very, I totally relate to people who can't come on board with using essential oils right away because I was so that. And, and it's hilarious because I'm so much of a lover of essential oils now that literally when people get around me, they usually don't, hang out with me for more than 5 to 10 minutes before I get something on them that is an essential oil of some kind, right?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of funny how things can flow, right?
Yeah.
But I had to have one other experience before I totally was all on board, I guess, with using essential oils, and then also joining my husband with it being an income producing option for us. So is it okay if I share that experience?
Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah,
please do. Yeah.
Please do.
So I had like I said, a 2-year-old, and I have all boys. Now I have 5, but at the time I had 3. And so, boys tend to be high energy levels. My 2-year-old had been watching his older brothers, right? And he's like, hey, I don't care if I'm just 2. I don't need a nap, right? Because nobody else is taking a nap, so I shouldn't take a nap. Does this sound familiar? Yeah, any of you who've had little kids probably know that this is common, especially when they have older siblings, because they think, I should be able to go all day. And a 2-year-old cannot go all day without a nap. Well, this particular child had tried that many days. And as a mom, or grandma, or if you've ever done this, it's nigh unto wanting to, slit your wrists when your kid will not sleep because they just get, they cry all the time and they can't, it's not like they function great without a nap, right? So it makes everyone on edge, and especially mom. And so I was trying white noise. I was trying the dark room. I was trying, certain music. I was trying rocking. I mean, I was like looking for every answer I possibly could. This kid would not nap. So really, and when you're in that place, it feels like that's all you can think about is like, I've got to get this kid to sleep. It doesn't matter what I have to do. I've got to get him to sleep. Okay. I wasn't going to like give him a tranquilizer,
Yeah,
but,
totally.
So I thought to myself, well, I wonder if one of these essential oils would help. I'm like, I know nothing, and one of them is called Serenity. And I'm like, that sounds like that might do it. So I put some on the bottom of his feet, or maybe my sister could have totally helped me. I honestly, it's been so long, I really can't remember. Yeah. She probably was a massive part of that, but I somehow figured out that it needed to be on his spine and on the bottom of his feet. So I put it on, and he like totally passed out, took this awesome like 2-hour nap, woke up really happy. And I was like, that's got to be a fluke. That can't be that works like that. Holy cow, right? So I told myself, all right, so I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to do an experiment. Let's see if these things really are what they are cracked up to be, And we'll see. If he takes a nap all the time, then, they're a winner, right? And so some days I would get on the phone, right? Moms, you've been there. I would get on the phone and I'd get distracted and he might fall asleep, but like he'd wake up in 20 minutes because I didn't put the oil on. He'd wake up in 20 minutes and he'd be crying, miserable, wouldn't go back, and I'm like, oh, dang it, and then the days that I would put it on, he would sleep longer. It wasn't every day that it was a 2-hour nap, but he would sleep longer and he would wake up happier. That was kind of like my final conclusion of like testing for over and over was like, okay, Roxane, when you put that on, he sleeps longer and he wakes up happier, period. I don't care, if it's exactly 2 hours or whatever. He's just doing better. He's getting better, more restful sleep. And so I just, at that point, I kind of had like a internal, like, okay, you know what? Like if there are moms out there or people out there who are struggling with pain, or if there's moms and grandmas that can't get their little to go to bed and I can help, like I have this bottle, instead of giving that person a hug and saying, I'm so sorry you're going through this, I can actually take that oil and say, here's a solution. And so it was that point that I just said, I have got to share these. I have got to help people. If I had known this was out here, I would have done it quicker, but that was my road and that was my experience. And I had to move at that point. So I started sharing. I started talking to everyone I could because, it just meant so much to me to have that piece of knowing that he was resting better and that I didn't have to deal with those headaches all the time. So massive things for me. Simple maybe to someone else, massive for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyone who struggled with those, they realize that those are massive. Yes. Okay, that's awesome. That's super great. I never use Serenity down the spine. Like, I'm so glad. I've definitely done it on the bottom of the feet, and I've diffused it, and I've put it, like, on his jawline, but on the bottom, on the spine, that's a great, thank you for sharing. That's a good tip.
No problem. And I have to say that since that, I mean, the amount of stories I have is a truckload. But I also just would say that naps, now one of the things I've learned is that, especially if the child is in a teething stage, there's a lot of oils that I use to calm that, because I didn't understand how much, at least for my children, some people's kids teeth very easily. It's a simple process. They don't have a lot of discomfort. My kids, it's like it lasts forever, and it feels like it starts in month 4 and doesn't go away until they're like 5. But it's really long. And so we use the oils for that, and it's so awesome. So if you've ever heard of Copa Eva, that is a great oil for neurological support, and that's the system in the body that struggles so much when there's discomfort and pain, is the nervous system. It gets really hot and bothered, and you just can't get it to stop doing what it's meant to do, which is telling you there's a problem, right? So I take the Copa Eva, I put that inside my kid's mouth, all over the gum area, wherever it's swollen, because that's usually where we've got, irritation and sensitivity. And then I'll take my finger and do clove, which is a hot oil, clove or On Guard. Either one of those will help to numb it as well. And you can put some coconut oil on the lips as you're going in to do this with your fingers, because you're going to make their lips a little bit stingy, right?
Yeah.
But usually, oh man, if your kid's struggling with that, like those 2 oils, and your kid's going to sleep like a champ.
Awesome.
That is such good information. That is such good. I would not have thought of the Copa Eva on the gums. Like, for sure, clove, yes. And then some lavender on the jawline. For us, that's something that we've done that's been worked, but I don't have super gnarly teethers, right? Like, I think I've been pretty blessed that they're pretty
so awesome.
mild.
Our last child, he's just turned 3, and he actually just teethed like a champ.
Yeah.
He would have teeth cutting, and he's just like, "What's up?" I'm like,
it didn't affect him the same.
It didn't really, but I mean, honestly, I think.
Granted, for us, it was just lavender on the jawline and his amber necklace, and that worked. And I like nurse on demand. Like, I am.
Oh yeah.
Everyone doesn't do that, but I am the type of mom that I'm just like, yeah, if you're crying, I check your diaper and I try to nurse. And if that works, then we're good.
Yeah.
But for people that don't have that as an option, I could see that could be more difficult. But I love, that's great, because I have definitely had people asking about the teething. So this is good. You teething people out there there's nothing actually worse when your baby's crying and you want to soothe them and you don't have the tools to do it.
Absolutely.
And when you don't have oils, what you do, like what we used to do before we had oils, is you were popping infant Tylenols to your kids, because you don't know any better.
Yeah, all bad.
Yeah.
It's
the jawline, sorry, I just really quickly wanted to say, I love that you guys do lavender there. A couple other, another one that's just a go-to for me, and I know it's a little strong, so put the coconut oil on first, but it's past tense, actually. And so I'll just do coconut oil on the jawline, and then I don't usually take the entire roller and go on the jawline. I just put a little bit on my finger and kind of trace.
Okay.
But that way, if it is ear related, you're kind of hitting that area too. And so, because it's so hard, I feel like it's pin the tail on what the heck is going on with you, right? You're like, Is it your stomach? Because they can't tell you, right? So is it your stomach? Is it your ears? Is it your teeth? What's bothering you? You're just crying, and I know I've done everything else.
Yeah.
So
I
the
know.
nice thing is you can use a bunch of oils for all that stuff, and
Yeah.
it's not going to create any side effects, and it's just going to help them overall. So I just kind of usually use the oil for each one of those things, and then I'm like, well, I hit them all, so you should be sleeping better now.
No, totally. That's what. So our youngest, who's 3 now, he was our first oil baby from birth or from
Pre-birth,
pregnancy
yeah.
through now, and we haven't had to ever use any infant Tylenol, anything else except for oils, and then like bone broth, right, and other and healthy, nutritious
Eating
food
healthy,
for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But besides that, and I remember when he was little, like that, when they can't communicate to you yet, right? Either you're like, what? And nursing doesn't, he's not hungry and
But
his diaper is
he's pretty
fine.
smart.
Yes, but when he was little and he couldn't, I literally was like, I would take a tablespoon of fractionated coconut oil, 1 drop frankincense, 1 drop lavender, head to toe his whole body. Then I would take the digestion roller, rub it on his tummy, and then I'd take lavender and melaleuca, rub it around the outside of the ears, and then lavender on the jawline. I'm like, okay, baby. Oh yeah, balance on the bottom of the feet. And I was just like, and on guard. And I'm every time, he'd be fine.
Yeah, he was totally fine.
He'd be fine. And I'm just like, if you cover all the ends,
Wow,
you know,
that is beautiful. I love how you just did it kind of like whole body. That's brilliant. That's really
Yeah, I mean, and he'd just be this head to toe, look like a greasy boy.
I mean, his skin is going to be awesome.
very
right?
moist.
Glowing.
He didn't ever
Glowing.
get cradle cap at all. Ever.
Right. Well, and like my 2-year-old's not nursing anymore. Like some kids nurse for a really long time, you know?
Yeah.
I totally hear you. The nursing does make it so much nicer because they do shut their mouth.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it helps them go back to sleep and whatever. But yeah, for me, I mean, and it sounds like for you, it's been, and if someone's listening to this and going, oh my gosh, you know, the one girl's using these certain oils and the other, you know, Sarah's using these, and don't get like too freaked out by the fact that there's different stuff. I think hopefully that comforts you knowing that, you know what, if you just learn a little bit, there are lots of options, and it could be that for your baby, one thing works that doesn't work for another baby. And so just kind of flow with the fact that you can try stuff, and it's not going to be like, oh my gosh, I got to fix my kid now that I tried this thing and they've got a side effect from it, you know?
Totally. So I have a really quick question. So when you put it on the inside on the gums, do you dilute it with coconut oil or you just put it on straight?
So I have a 2-year-old now again. Don't ask how old I am. Some of my friends would say I shouldn't have a 2-year-old now, but so with him, he's had, when he first started teething, he was, like I said, for my kids, it's a long process. They start really young. And honestly, when he first started teething, he was really little. So he was like 4 to 6 months old. And I would use more like Roman chamomile on his gums straight. And it's not a spicy oil.
Yeah.
And that would he would nap like a champ. Like, you got to get on an airplane and your kid has never had Roman chamomile and they're little infant. Test it maybe once before you get on the plane.
Yeah.
Because some kids actually have the opposite response. They get revved up versus calm down. But my babies, when they were little, that Roman chamomile in their mouth, on their gum, it would just help them sleep really well.
That
and
is
so
awesome.
You might get a good stretch of sleep on the plane. Yeah. But now, like if I put Roman chamomile in his mouth now, he gets like energized. So it's just weird how they shift and they transition. And when I first started doing clove in his mouth, I would take my hand, like you said, you know, I'd pour some fractionated coconut oil in my hand, make it like a little puddle.
Yeah.
I do 2 drops of the clove, and I would take and mix it around, and then I would rub his gums. And he was really young when we transitioned to that. And now he's 2, and you know, he's a bit tougher, and he's been using them for a while. So I would say your intro and you're just starting, instead of just doing coconut oil on the lips, follow more of what Sarah said, you know, use like probably a tablespoon of the coconut oil in your hand or something. You don't have to measure it, but you know, little puddle, and do a drop or 2 of clove, and
Awesome.
And we'll start with diluted, and then you can, because you know your kid. Yeah, I've noticed that even with my 3-year-old, like I diluted all the time, and I don't always need to now, and he's totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you speak just quick few words or whatever about I mean, there's people out there that are like, oh, something's wrong with my kid, I got to go to the hospital, I need medicine, but how empowering is it that you have options, like many powerful options, before even considering the doctor, the
Yeah,
emergency room, something like
that
that?
is an awesome question. I know there's people out there who have, like I said, amazing dental slash medical insurance. And
Hmm.
my husband and I just have never quite had jobs that have done that for us. Um, so I guess from a financial perspective, like I just look at it and I go, oh my gosh, like the amount of savings, like we quite literally the only time we go to the doctor is like severe stuff. Like my husband just hopefully he'll come on podcast and share this, but he had a farm wound that was really significant that required like over 20 stitches. And
Uh,
that one we're like, okay, we got to go to the ER. We're not going to like,
Yes. Unless you're going to stitch him up.
yeah. So, things like that. I'm totally all about
Yeah.
emergency care. And
Yep.
it's so awesome to have what we have available to us.
Totally.
But I feel like the rest of us clogging up the doctor's offices and making it so they can't spend time with each patient because we're going in for little things
Hmm.
is kind of sad. Like we as a people, we're so like into independence and control as Americans, and
Yeah.
not that other cultures aren't, but we kind of are. And I'm
Mhm.
like, it's time to take back our health and like take it into our own hands and our own homes and go. I can actually sort out about 80% of what goes on for my family right
Mhm.
at my house, and it's not because I'm being a dork and I'm like putting my kids at risk.
Mhm.
I'm absolutely feeding them well, and I'm using what I call informed self-care is the
Yeah.
essential oils. I'm learning and little by little, using them to help deal with things, so I don't have to go get an antibiotic. I don't have to go do all that. And so the oils can function that way. And it's not only does it just make you feel better, because I mean your kids inevitably they get stuff happening, and even as an adult it happens in the middle of the night. That's when stuff happens. It doesn't always
Totally.
happen when you're like, oh, it's a perfectly convenient time for me to go down to the hospital. So if you have the
Lunch
oils,
break.
you're like, oh, it's 2 a.m. Okay, way easier to go in my underwear and get this oil than it
Yeah.
is to load all the kids up in the car because my husband's out of town. We gotta all go to the ER.
Mhm.
So breathing challenges, stomach upset, vomiting, all these things. I mean, you really can. You can deal with them with the oils, and it's incredible what they can do.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And I can only imagine how many people, how many lives you've touched and how many stories you've heard. But just hearing your stories and knowing our stories, it's so awesome that consistently people who use these oils are seeing
Mhm.
being empowered and being able to handle and address not just small things, but large things too. I mean, things that if they didn't have the oils, they would be in the emergency room. They would be at the dentist. They would be getting antibiotics. They would be getting things that possibly could be harming their bodies. And I think it's awesome that we're coming full circle and full circle in many ways. One, we used to only use food and herbs for our medicine, kind of coming back around. And doTERRA preaches, obviously, speaking about doTERRA, and that's the oils we use here. But they preach health. They preach supplementation. They preach mental
Nutrition,
wellness also, and working on yourself, and which is all huge.
exercise.
On top of that, in this day and age, so many people, while social media makes you think and look at outside, also it and I've heard this from women a lot of times that they forget about taking care of themselves with kids, right? They have a hard time taking care of themselves. They think of everybody else. So I think these oils, like your headache, you're able to address your headache, which just enables you to address your children even better, and they're able to tolerate everything's better. On top of that, people nowadays, it's all about me. I just want to be about me. But when you found, and I'm not saying that's how you were before, but when you found out how amazing these oils were, you were like, I got to let everybody know. And that's service. And service is just part of life. And that's kind of one of those things that used to be, oh, my neighbor needs help putting up a wall, digging a well. He needs some food, eggs, whatever. But nowadays it's like, what do I need? I need this. I want this, So now these oils are helping people serve, giving them internal desire to serve. And I think that's super awesome.
Mhm.
It's true. It's true. I mean, and it doesn't have, you don't have to, some people get like totally bogged down. Like, I don't know which oil to use. I don't know how to use it. I can't, it's too much. It's too overwhelming. And I'm absolutely somebody who can get overwhelmed, especially any of your, moms that have young kids. It's like adding one more thing to the, it's just crazy. But all I have to say is like, Sarah didn't start using all that elaborate, awesome, protocol with her child at once. It probably was an evolution, you know, and it's okay.
Totally.
Like if you just start by putting Melaleuca right here on your baby because you think that he's got a little congestion in his ear canal, it's awesome. You know, it's a very cool oil. It's not hot. Start there. Start little steps. It's great. And it'll, over time, you'll get more and more comfortable and you'll have little successes, and hopefully you have someone to reach out to get some support. And that's one of the things I think that's so awesome. Like you mentioned, the service component, like we can help each other. We can teach each other, you know, how to do this, and so that you don't have to be afraid.
Yeah,
Totally.
that's super awesome.
It's totally so awesome.
Before we wrap this up, is there anything else you wanted to say? Anything you want to plug or anything like that?
You know, it's funny. I had, and I'm sure that no other mothers have ever dealt with this, but I remember when I had my first, that, you know, I was kind of clueless. I'm the last kid of 8. I didn't help raise a bunch of little kids, little infants. You know, I didn't know what I was doing. My husband knew way more about how to raise babies than I did because he was the oldest. And to be honest, I didn't think I was going to have such feelings in the night when you've had multiple nights of no sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And your kid's crying, you know, over and over. And it's just like all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is how people end up shaking their babies, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not the crazies out there. It's the people who are sleep deprived and who don't have an answer. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, oh man, if just Roman chamomile or lavender or digestion or whatever it is, you know, just one oil gave a mom something to put on their baby so that they didn't feel like they needed to shake that baby because they just couldn't handle it anymore, you know? Mm-hmm. And that is massive change that can be made. So that is something I did want to share, is that, you know, it can be emotional. A big part of this can be emotional. And some people can say, well, the oils don't really work. You're just, you know, it's placebo effect and it makes you feel better. And I'm like, well, if that's true, it's working to make you feel better. So just
That's totally right. Thank you for sharing that.
And that's a whole nother component about a whole nother component about the oils, the emotional side. And then I'm sure we'll have you on again and talk about the emotional. And then there's a spiritual side too. And it's like, it's just amazing what these things can do. And it's oil in a bottle. And it's like, oh yeah, that, like you said, the emotional side, the spiritual side, the physical side there, it's all so huge. And we really appreciate you coming on and taking your time to, tell part of your story.
Thank you so much. And as we're not making any claims, you guys, it's an option. Like, that's the whole point of our podcast. We're just providing a possible solution, a possible option. If you're like at your wit's end, you're like, I don't even know, like, you could just try it. Because what we do know is nothing negative is going to happen from it, right? You're like, you're not going to kill your liver. You're not going to have a negative side effect. So there's only pros from, if any of this resonates with you, from you being like, oh, hey. And again, we're not talking about, do not go to
Walmart. With that being said, what she said, we don't, there's levels of oils, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're not gonna race in a Formula One event with a Hyundai, right? You're gonna have a tuned vehicle for that.
For those of you who know
there's
cars.
Qualities, a Hyundai, $2,000, F1 car, 10 million. So, and we're not saying there's this huge price difference. What we're saying is there's people out there that know about certain oil brands, and Walmart doesn't carry that, Target, and a lot of those oils are actually dangerous. So we're specifically speaking about doTERRA here today, but there's a few other brands on the market that, you know.
This is what I'd say. If you don't have an oil person, it's not the right kind of oils. Like, you need an oil person to, like, help you. And so yes, you need to find yourself an oil person.
And they're all over the place.
They're all over the place. You're welcome to message us and we can help you out.
If you want to send a link,
whatever you want,
Roxane also
she's welcome to
list it below.
Yeah, typically what we do is any guests we have on here, we have them post their link, and then when you feel like you resonate with someone, you can go to whoever you feel is your person. Because that's another thing. Like, we're all about, like, trying to connect people with their people, and it makes a big difference when you're learning about your health and you're really trying to better yourself, to be with people that you really resonate with. So,
and oftentimes we've been at a place where I personally have, messaged people about, hey, what about this? What is this? What about this oil? What about this? Oh, let me call. Hey, we have this issue. Use this. Thanks so much, kid. Thanks, bye. And so many people are just a phone call away to help you.
And there's tons of forums online too, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
You could become a member of an essential oil group. Anyways, there's lots of options. And thank you so much, Roxane, for being on here.
So much.
My pleasure. And as hosts, you guys are amazing. And I would say that I do not need to share a link. I absolutely trust everyone who comes with questions or wants to work with you guys. I'm sure they're going to have a great experience. And
You're
the
awesome.
customer service that happens, like he mentioned, where you can ask questions and stuff, that is absolutely unheard of. And that's what makes this so phenomenal. So just utilize our hosts as your contact for getting essential oil education, and they can help you. It's going to be a huge change in your life.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roxane. Thank you, Roxane.
My pleasure.
All right, everybody. Thanks
you
for joining us. Like, share, and spread the word, you guys. It's really important to spread the good news of health options.
And if you have an amazing story,
message us.
Whether you're with doTERRA or not, message us, and perhaps we can have you on. Thanks again, Roxane. And remember, have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.
And remain unaltered.
Remain unaltered.